All right, it looks like I'm live. Let me know if you can see me. Let me know if you can hear me. This will be a new experience for me on the live streams because I'm doing it from StreamYard, which I now have a subscription to. You see myself and Josh Jacobs via those means. On Fridays, I should be able to get together with Josh tomorrow to do our podcast, Philosophical Differences. But let me know if you can see me and hear me on YouTube. And if you happen to be tuning in from Facebook, I am actually streaming this to Facebook as well. But just trying to test something out here tonight. Like I said, something different that I've not done before. I see Daniel's in, Dale is here. We're just going to try to give this a whirl. It's later at night than I would normally do a live stream. I don't know what the quality is going to be. I'm honestly kind of curious to see how this goes, but I want to give it a shot because I do have this subscription now to StreamYard, and if it ends up being something that works out really well, then maybe we can do streams this way now moving forward. Brett is here. Nimbus is here. Just let me know what the quality sounds like if it's different because it's a completely different broadcast software. But in theory, I should be able to see all the comments from YouTube, and then like I could do it from Twitter if I wanted to. I decided not to tonight because I do have I've got a following on Twitter, but I wanted to wait and see if it actually works out. What's going on, Jeff K? How we doing tonight, guys? Cardinals obviously lose a tough one tonight. That's what we're going to be here to talk about. But because it is after 11 p.m. and I didn't really give anybody notice, I want to give folks a little bit more time here to roll in. I could throw it out on Twitter. But I don't really necessarily want to. But if anything, I might like to share the live stream link. So let me get a moment to do that. I'm going to tweet the link, and then we'll go ahead and get started with B-Schaeff Daily Live. Get your questions in. You can subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. And by the way, I put a link in the description. If you guys would be so kind as to subscribe to my fantasy football channel, that's obviously NFL season's coming up, and that's something else I'm trying to get going. I'll still be doing all the Cardinals content in the off season, but that's something else I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers over there. You guys were so great to get me to 1,000 on YouTube pretty quickly last summer when I started the channel. It would be huge to get the YouTube channel for football there as well. The link is in the description. If you are willing to help me out with that, that would be tremendous. I'm going to tweet this link out, and then we'll get started. And then, it would be very interesting, I think, to do live streams on Twitter. I know that that's something that, Elon Musk would like people to be doing, but I'm not entirely sure if it ends up being something that catches on or not. But hey, if it's a more intimate gathering tonight, that's okay by me. We'll still talk about the same stuff, but your questions could be seen and heard tonight if this ends up being a little bit more of a quiet gathering, which would be okay. Trophy store is here. It sounds good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to get started, I think. I think we're going to rock and roll with B-Schaeff Daily Live. I'll roll on. Let me know if you guys have questions, and we'll kind of take it from there. If you saw my tweet on Twitter, you can retweet the stream, and that way we'll get some more friends in here. But otherwise, let's I found a typo in my tweet. I said, let's about it on YouTube. Let's talk about it on YouTube. That might be better. Okay, I think we're ready to get going. In 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of B-Schaeff Daily Live. Brenden Schaeffer here with you. It is Thursday evening, August 8th, 2024. Cardinals dropped the series finale against the Rays tonight at Busch Stadium. Not the result the Cardinals were looking for, especially considering they held a lead going into the late innings of this game, thanks to some early offensive production. But we kind of knew this could be coming for the Cardinals tonight. If they got involved in another close game late, the bullpen was going to be a little bit compromised. You had Ryan Helsley get you 2 saves to begin the series, game 1, game 2, and then in game 3, he simply wasn't going to be available. I talked last night how I was impressed that he was available for a back-to-back after throwing 25 pitches on Tuesday. Helsley got both saves, and so that's really been the story of the Cardinals season, right? If Helsley's going out there for a game in the 9th inning when the Cardinals have a lead, you can pretty well expect that they're going to get the win. I think there's only been one occasion in maybe the 39 save opportunities where the Cardinals have lost that game. He's blown 3 saves. 2 of them, he ended up as the winning pitcher. But you knew you weren't going to have him tonight on Thursday if you had a close game. The other name that you probably weren't going to have, and even though Ollie Marmol said after the game, if they absolutely had to, they might have been able to go to Kittredge, But Andrew Kittredge was a guy they really wanted to stay away from after he went back-to-back to begin this series as well. So what did that mean? If you're in a tight contest late, it's going to be JoJo Romero and then hopefully somebody setting up Ryan Fernandez to have the potential save opportunity. And the very moment that you had to take Kyle Gibson out of the game, he was at 91 pitches after 6. You kind of wondered if maybe he could have, at least I did, wonder if maybe Kyle Gibson could have gone back out for the 7th inning because of how quick the 6th inning was for him. Ultimately, Ollie Marmol decides at 91 pitches, he's going to go to the bullpen, which was rested, right? Besides those leverage guys that we talked about, with JoJo Romero also coming into the game last night, you just figured like this was going to be a spot that you were going to try to get Gibby through 6. They did. They had the lead. Somebody else has to be able to get outs for this Cardinal bullpen, I think is really what it boils down to. And Kyle Leahy had a shot and unfortunately walked the first batter that he faced, and the inning started to unravel a little bit from there. You call upon JoJo for the rescue mission once the lefties in the lineup start to come about, and it seemed to be the scenario that you'd want if you're Ollie Marmol. It was a sinker that gets taken deep, and all he asked after the game was asked about the pitch that was hit out of the park by Brenden, and I'm going to get it wrong. It's Brenden Josh Lowe. I'm going to have to look it up just to make sure because it was very funny tonight on the broadcast when Chip Caray, about Brenden, he said it the wrong way, whichever way it wasn't. I think he said Lowe, but it is Lau for Brenden. Is that right? Yeah, rhymes with now. Thank you, Baseball Reference. For Brenden Lau, of course, the Rays have 3 guys with the Lowe last name, but 2 of them are pronounced Lowe. Brenden is pronounced Lau, if I'm not mistaken. So it was very funny when he kind of realized his mistake, and then there was a pregnant pause in the broadcast booth, and Chip goes, I think it's Lau. And immediately BT goes, no, like just knowing that he knew it was wrong and that he was going to correct himself, I thought was kind of comedic. But anyway, Brenden Lau is who ends up hitting the home run off of JoJo. And after the game, Ollie was asked about that pitch because how could you not ask about it? It was the key moment of the game. Jeff Jones asked for his thoughts on it. And Ollie said, really, that's just a matchup that he's going to take every single time with his guy JoJo against a guy who has kind of struggled against that pitch. And JoJo didn't necessarily make a bad pitch. It was just a really good piece of hitting by Brenden Lau to hit it just over the outstretched glove, as well as Victor Scott II in center field. Saw it on the thumbnail there. That is just one of those things that you just kind of tip your cap and move along. I think that was the approach that Ollie Marmol took. A lot of Cardinals fans I've seen kind of make this an indictment of JoJo Romero and of the back end of the bullpen. And are the Cardinals going to have enough to be able to gut through the rest of the season with this group of relievers? I understand that the bullpen is not performing quite at the level that it was. You could go back to, April, early May when you had, I coined it the triumvirate, when you had JoJo, Kittredge, and Helsley. Just all 3 of them had ERAs that seemed like they were below 2 at the time. Just all 3 of those guys were so good. And that obviously is not held up. But I still think the Cardinals do have a strength in their bullpen. The problem is you do ultimately have to get outs from more than 4 guys. And when you play as many close games as the Cardinals seem to, and look, tonight I think the offense was off to a great start with the way they attacked Shane Baz, but then where were they, right? After those first few innings, you didn't really see that same push from the Cardinals. So as much as you want to say they made strides over the past couple of days in terms of runners in scoring position and being able to come up with some of those big hits, it kind of fizzles. And for the Cardinals, it's just been a couple times a game. You see them really come to life. They put together something offensively. They string together a rally, but then it doesn't really sustain. And they weren't able to do anything in the middle innings against the starter, and then the latter innings against the Tampa Bay bullpen. Cardinals were really shut down. Now you could make the case that they hit into some tough luck tonight. Victor Scott was 100% going to score on that Mason Wynn double, but it bounced over the wall and hit the signage out there for a ground rule double. So there's a run that's just taken off the board through just a little bit of sheer bad luck. And then Pete Fairbanks, the St. Louis kid, comes out to pitch the ninth. The exit velos, I'd have to look it up on the StatCast, but they were hitting the ball pretty hard against Fairbanks. It just happened to be right to people, and feels like just one of those nights. And as much as that's frustrating for Cardinals fans, it is something that happens in baseball. Baseball kind of happened to the Cardinals tonight. The problem is, though, and look, we'll talk about some of the disappointments. Like I see from Nick talking about, shouldn't have pulled Gibson after 6. That could be somebody's opinion. I at least said I would have considered going 7 with him, but I understand, having a rested bullpen, eventually a guy like Kyle Leahy his role in your bullpen has to be eventually to come into these games and get a couple outs for you before turning it over to JoJo. I'm not going to say inexcusable. Corn, I would agree. I just don't think you could really make that statement. Everybody's inclination is always going to be, especially on social media, and I get it, and I'm not trying to criticize you as a fan, but it's always going to be to talk about how the manager got it wrong and it's Ollie Marmol's fault. And I think that tonight is just not a night where, we can really talk about that. You can. I'm just not going to end up agreeing with you. At the end of the day, you've got more than 4 guys out there in the bullpen for a reason. Anytime a bullpen blows a game, I feel like it's going to – the sentiment's going to be out there of, oh, the manager did this or did that. He didn't do the right things, didn't bring in the right guys. That's always something you can say with the benefit of hindsight. You have to go by process, though. And when I look at the process of the way that they were trying to approach it tonight, we knew it was going to be a long shot. And so maybe that's a way and a reason to stay with Kyle Gibson a little bit longer. We knew they were going to have to use some of their non-top leverage relievers in those spots if they were going to find a way to get through it tonight. And, they start with Kyle Leahy, and right off the bat, it doesn't go well. So you knew coming in it was going to be an uphill climb if they had to play a close game. I think part of the indictment can be the offense not really getting enough done. But by the same token, 3 for 10 with RISP is still a pretty good mark. That's 2 days in a row. The Cardinals have picked up 3 hits with runners in scoring position. Arenado just stroked a double down the third baseline. He is really starting to see the ball better. And I saw different folks today. Eno Saris had written an article where he basically highlighted the fact that Arenado's bat speed has increased since July 4th. And even though it hasn't necessarily showed up in his batting lines just yet, it's something that you could potentially expect to see from him as a way to increase the production down the stretch if he can continue to maintain that bat speed increase. So certainly tonight, I think was, a nice timely article by Eno Saris. And then I saw Bernie was talking about it on his channel this morning. It was something that had been pointed out as well by a couple of others. Arenado tonight, 3 for 3, a couple of runs scored, had an RBI and reached base via walk. He's starting to put it together, and like that can be something for this Cardinals team. But man, it doesn't just seem like when they get one of the guys out of a bit of a skid or a slump, somebody else might go into one. We've seen Nolan Gorman really struggle. 2 more strikeouts tonight, 0 for 4. His average is down to 199. People are wondering, does he need to go to Memphis? And I think it is a conversation because Ollie Marmol has obviously shown some hesitance toward putting him in the lineup. Other than in plus matchups. And tonight really was a matchup against a righty that you would like to see Gorman be able to hang in there. And ultimately, he wasn't able to perform tonight and did get the start. At a certain point, do you have other ways that you could go about it? I think it's something the Cardinals internally should at least be considering. I'm not going to say there's a hard and fast, obvious answer to it, but that's one of the guys that's been struggling. Look, Lars Nootbaar, man, 0 for 2 tonight, and then Tommy Pham comes in. He also has a sub 700 OPS. It's not just Gorman that's struggling. Nootbaar's right down there with him in terms of OPS. Certainly not the same strikeout numbers. But Burleson, after a great game yesterday, tonight, 0 for 5, and those games are going to happen. It just seems like they're not quite able to get everybody going at once. Credit to Paul Goldschmidt for his 2 RBI hit, was able to come up clutch for the Cardinals tonight. But just a little bit light in terms of the overall production. Being able to kind of coast to a win was really what the Cardinals needed tonight. I'm not freaking out about Gibby only going 6. I think 6 is a perfectly acceptable night for him. I think I thought 6 and 2 could be the type of game that could be enough, but you were going to have 1 inning to cover that you weren't really comfortable with how they were going to cover it. And I think Kyle Leahy was the chosen name for that inning. And ultimately, JoJo had to come in to rescue, so he couldn't pitch the 8th. Ryan Fernandez would have been available for the 9th if it would have gotten that far. And of course it didn't. So those are kind of my first interpretations and thoughts on the Cardinals loss tonight, 6-4 to the Rays. It really is unfortunate because that was a potential series sweep that you had right there in the basket, ready to pick it up. And they weren't able to do it despite playing a pretty good game tonight. The bullpen stuff kind of catches up to you. And this is why really coming into the trade deadline, I said, I think the Cardinals need to get one more kind of high leverage arm. And they did go get Sean Armstrong in the Dylan Carlson trade. And Dylan, by the way, for the Rays, playing pretty well, but kind of like I told you he would. But that is not an indictment saying the Cardinals should not have traded him. I say the exact opposite. They should have traded him because they knew it was not going to rebound with the Cardinals. It just seemed that way. And now, Dylan's getting an opportunity there with Tampa and came up with a 2 RBI hit in the first inning against Kyle Gibson that ends up, being pretty relevant in this game with the margin of victory that Tampa Bay ultimately had. I think Dylan's OPS is right around 1,000 since joining the Rays. Obviously still a pretty small sample size, but just something to kind of keep in mind. But Shawn Armstrong is who the Cardinals brought in, and that was more a move. And look, they were trying to add to the bullpen, and it made sense to try and do it in the same move that you unloaded DC, because I think they were intending to unload DC regardless, because with Tommy Pham coming in, they didn't have a roster spot for him anyway. So this was 100% what they were going to do. But you would have liked to have maybe gotten somebody with a little bit more of a high leverage pedigree. Even though Armstrong had a really good year last year for the Rays, his ERA over 5 this season. And clearly, I mean, they went to Leahy instead of Armstrong in the spot that really counted. They didn't go to Armstrong until after the lead had already been given up. So you kind of consider that and say, man, if the Cardinals had maybe on deadline day made one additional trade, I know that the prices for relievers were really, really high, but that might have been the thing that this team needed, because I'm looking at this bullpen going, there's a lot of things to like about it, but there's also some strain on some of the guys that are your highest performers over the course of the season. And I mean, JoJo, take him as a good example. He had to get you 4 outs last night. And then tonight you're already asking, hey, can you come in and rescue somebody in the 7th? He's human too, and not always going to be able to come up with it, even in a scenario where, look, they had the matchup they wanted. And sometimes a guy makes a good swing, he's getting paid too. So that's really the way that this game went tonight for the Cardinals. I think it highlights the need. And look, there's nothing they can do about it now other than hope for Riley O'Brien to make his way to the big leagues. Highlights a little bit the need that we had sort of identified for maybe needs some more bullpen, and just one more kind of high leverage arm. Didn't end up getting it. And so we'll see if that's something that ends up coming back to cost the Cardinals. You could make the case that it did tonight, but it was also the offense too. You just wish they could have maybe done a little bit more, because 4 runs is good. It's better than the times they're getting 2 runs or 3. But ultimately, I feel like they just fell a little bit short because they weren't able to add to their lead in the later innings. And then you're susceptible to some bad luck sometimes. They did. They took good swings, I think, against Pete Fairbanks, but fell a little bit short. So it's a tough loss. Cardinals are trying to climb in the standings. They end up getting knocked back down. The Brewers have been feasting on the Braves. That's the news of the night. The Cardinals are only 2 games back of the Braves. The Braves aren't in a wild card spot, though, right now. It's actually the Mets that have that 3rd wild card, and the Padres and D-backs just keep winning. Padres won today. D-backs, I think, were on a bye today. They did not have did not have a game on Thursday night, but those teams are both 8 of their last 10, and they're kind of, I mean, Mike Shilt's Padres, 12 games above 500. So Cardinals are 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. They cede a little bit more ground in the division. They're 7 games back. I just don't think the Central is necessarily a super relevant thing to be looking at right now. It's just about trying to win games and get to that mid-80s win total and hope for the best from there is really maybe the strategy here. But this would have been a series to sweep. They played well enough, I think, to sweep it, and they just came a little bit short. I'm going to jump right now into the comments. Miles, appreciate you for joining the B-Schaeff Daily Lounge, my man. Send me a DM on Twitter, and I will get you set up for the group chat there in the Discord. I did not link the Discord, I don't believe, into the live stream today. But anybody that wants to join the Discord, the link is always on my videos, and so it'll be on the repost of this podcast when I put it on YouTube overnight after we finish up here. Let's go ahead and hop right in. By the way, one more quick reminder. If you want to join the live chat, all you got to do is subscribe to the channel. And then the link to my fantasy football channel is in the description. Means the world if you guys would hit subscribe on that channel too. You don't need notifications for that one if you don't love fantasy, but I'm trying to get the numbers up so I can start doing some cool things over there. Let's see, Brett. What's up, everybody? Jeff is in the house. Brett says, sure, the bullpen was an issue tonight, but it's lack of offense overall this season. We can only score in spurts at the start or at the end of the game, and we never seem to lay it on in the middle innings. And just imagine if the Cardinals were a top 10 team with Crisp, as we know, that's Cardinals runners in scoring position, instead of bottom 5. Yeah, with Risp, the Cardinals have not been strong. That's not something we can really harp on tonight because they were 3 for 10. Last night, 3 for 11. That's a nice little, doing some quick math, 6 for 21, right? That's a pretty solid mark, just a shade below 300 for the 2 games. So they were really struggling coming in. Monday against the Mets was not good. Tuesday against the Rays was not good. So, and we know the weekend series at Wrigley was a problem. So those kind of things happen. They got the Risp numbers tonight to at least put themselves in the potential to make something happen. And unfortunately, they did. The ground rule double where Victor Scott would have scored from first pretty easily, I think, was just a shame. That one took a run off the board. It wasn't with Risp, but still something worth mentioning. Corn says after Burley smoked the fly out after that. Yeah, I mean, they had some hard hit balls tonight. Like I think it would be disingenuous for me to come on here and be like, oh, the offense stinks. I mean, they regressed. No, I mean, they had 3 for 10 with Risp. They started off so strong. They were bombarding Shane Baz. Credit the young pitcher because he makes a little bit of an adjustment. It looked like for a moment they might be taking him out of the game in the first, and he ends up getting through 4 and a third. So, credit to him for being able to kind of stick with it. But the Cardinals then, when the relievers came in, they just could not get anything going. And Tampa's relief corps tonight piles up 4 2/3 innings pitched, allowing just 3 hits, 1 walk, and obviously no runs. And the one inning where the Cardinals did seem like they were going to add on, you just had the bad luck with Mason's double going over the wall. He's got such a sweet swing, though. I mean, there were some really good positives to take away from him tonight. And from Nolan Arenado, I mentioned him offensively, what he was able to do was really cool, just to kind of see him swinging the bat well and constantly putting himself on base. But the other aspect of that is his defense. The double play between Arenado, basically fielding the bunt and going right to second base with it, and Mason Wynn knowing I've got to put some juice behind this throw to make it. I mean, that was great. And I honestly can't even remember if it was a bunt or a swinging bunt, but just, impressive stuff on that play. One of the coolest double plays that you're going to see. Lakota puts, one of our members puts a good comment out here. The D-backs just lost to the Phillies. So it's not the fact that the D-backs were off today. They just hadn't finished. I kind of figured it was so late at night that all the games would be done, but I guess that's not true. So thank you for the hat tip on that to Lakota. I would have missed that. Allison says, is it just me or do we seem to do better on the road than at home this season? Well, I can certainly find that number for you, Allison. It might just be you a little bit because the away record for the Cardinals this year, 28-30. At home, they are 31-27. But what I would say is those margins are so thin. I mean, that's not too big of a difference. A little bit above 500 at home, a little bit below 500 on the road. And so that's kind of where the Cardinals stand right now. Ace says it was a heartbreaker, and it was. I mean, this was one where you kind of felt the vibes of getting a good outing from Gibby. Started a little bit. It seems like the Cardinals have some of these games recently where, it starts a little rough. He gave up the 2 runs in the first inning. And the first 2 pitches of the game, it was runners on second and third. So, again, to be able to kind of rebound from that and settle in for 6 the way that he did, I think it was around 85 pitches after 5. He threw like a 6-pitch 6th inning because he was able to get a double play involved there. And despite that, I think it was probably known going into the 6th, like it's going to be your last inning. So even though the pitch count didn't change very much, I think that was probably the reasoning of why he was removed there. And again, Leahy was fresh. Like you had guys that were fresh. You just needed that one extra inning and maybe even just a couple of extra outs from Leahy before being able to turn it over to JoJo for 4 outs and then Ryan Fernandez for 3. Could have gotten you to the end. And unfortunately, Brandon Lau made the play of the game by connecting on that pitch against Romero. And from there, it went. Joe said, if you're starting Goldie every day, you're not serious about winning as a franchise. It's the simple truth. Well, I would say this. They're not starting him every day. They started him today. They didn't start him yesterday. However, Goldie had 2 of the Cardinals' RBIs tonight. Half the team's runs driven in. So, I get it. People are frustrated with Goldie. His numbers aren't good enough. He's got a 670 OPS. He'd be the first to tell you that his numbers aren't good enough this season. Lars Nootbaar should probably be telling you the same thing about his numbers, 691 OPS. Gorman would tell you the same thing about his numbers, 674 OPS. Arenado's getting up there. He's starting to move, 720 OPS. He's getting into the acceptable territory. But I would say he would still tell you he has not had the season he expects from himself. Donovan at 721, he was 2 for 3 tonight, also was on base 3 times because he walked. I would say that even at a solid enough 721, Donovan would say there's still more in the tank for him than what he's given. So I think it's up and down the lineup. The Cardinals, would like to be doing more. Victor Scott was 2 for 4, so he's up to a 110 batting average. Look, it was tough for Victor at the beginning of the year, but I think we have seen mostly a different version of him since he's been called back up. So we'll see what ends up happening there with his offense. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of the way that this has played out for the Cardinals is up and down the lineup. They haven't had guys performing. And it's been, the case that some of the guys that you thought would be here are now in the minors. And look, guys like Jordan Walker are starting to come around. I won't have the Down on the Farm drop for you for the live stream, which is brought to you by Hastings Slayers Premium Eggs, by the way. But won't have it because I have no idea how to play a drop in the middle of a live stream. But anyway, we'll still go and take a look. Jordan Walker tonight was 1 for 5, had a couple of strikeouts. Must have just been a base hit, single for him. But he's been turning things around more recently where you're seeing the ball stroke pretty well. Sajasi 2 for 3, just as I kind of check out the box score for Memphis a little bit. But you expected Jordan Walker to be in this lineup, right? So the fact that he's not at the big league level, it's not just Paul Goldschmidt is kind of my point. And on a night where Goldie did have a clutch hit for the team, I'm not really going to go overly crazy. But yeah, he'll tell you his numbers aren't good enough. And I think that's going to be, something you would say about a lot of the guys on the team. A lot of the guys would say that about themselves, is that they just, they haven't had it. Corn wants me to do the move. I actually had a comment of somebody saying that the moves is too much. I like it once, maybe. Any more than that, it's just no good. And I just kind of had to laugh because I'm like, it's pre-recorded, man. The moves are not going anywhere. But I'll give you one. That was the best I have for you tonight. Allison said, I learned that there is official ground rule triple in the rules. Came up at trivia today. Wonder how many times it has actually happened. Yeah, I don't know how many times the ground rule triple has happened, Allison, but I do recall, I think it's if somebody throws their glove at the ball, right? Isn't that what it is? If they try to field it with the glove, but they like kind of throw their glove at it, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know if I'm on that or if I'm off base. Dale said, how about Arenado having a night? Absolutely Arenado having a night. That's the kind of thing that could be real. Like there could be some legitimacy to that based on, again, I'll credit Eno Saris who wrote about it, but basically the increase in his bat speed since July 4th, which is, a little more than a month now. So yeah, use their hat to catch the ball. I think it might even be the glove too, though. If it's anything that you use to basically remove to try to catch it, if you like throw your glove at it, I think might be part of it too. But Allison, you're right on that. I'm remembering that now. The hat is definitely part of that deal. Maybe the glove is, maybe I'm just making stuff up. If I am, I apologize. Fans tend to pile onto the hitting coach maybe too often and too heavily from Lakota here. But with most hitters slumping, at what point does that become a conversation? Yeah, I mean, I get it. And coaching will be reviewed at the end of every season. I don't think for the people that are basically, and I see some of this on social media, I think it's probably some of the folks that are the most frustrated. But when people are saying in the middle of a game or like after a tough loss, this has to be the one where heads are going to roll. There will be firings or I'm done. It's like, all right, that's not the way any of this works, right? And it might make you sad. It might make you mad, sleep on it and see how you feel tomorrow. But I'm just trying to tell you, nobody's getting fired this season, right? They're going to evaluate after the season's over. And is Turner Ward getting the most out of these hitters? Like there's a case to be made that he's not, but it's also not just him that is responsible for it. So that's always a touchy conversation. It's a fair question, Lakota. Like, it's not like we can't talk about it. I think it does, it's something that I know fans are talking about, but I think you want to look at a body of work and you want to look at the end of the season, but it would be fair to say, hey, like as much as you might like a coach, if their players and their position group are across the board underperforming, which season's not over yet, so we can't say definitively that that'll be the case. What questions can be asked about that as to how you can maybe get better performance? That's certainly within fair range, Lakota, in my opinion. Corn said, if you throw your glove up to block a homer, maybe Victor should have tried that. You know what? I thought Victor was so darn close to timing out the jump perfectly. And I think his arm, he reached back to try to get extension toward the ball, and it kind of limited his upward mobility. It felt like a little bit. He was darn close to being able to take that home run away. Nodlin wants to know, who's this Ryan Ludwig I've been hearing about lately that's apparently a hitting wizard? Is he minor league staff? So, first of all, if you're serious, Ryan Ludwig is, of course, a former Cardinals outfielder. Always loved watching Ryan Ludwig. He came over originally. Does anybody remember the trade? I'm sure a lot of you do remember the trade. That'll be our trivia question for the night. Well, actually, sorry. I was going to correct myself. I have to correct myself. Ryan Ludwig was on the Cardinals. The trade that sent him away, do we remember the trade that sent Ryan Ludwig away from the Cardinals? Will be the trivia question for the night officially. I'm sure we will get somebody that answers it correctly, but then if not, I've got a hint for you. But Ryan Ludwig, former Cardinals outfielder, really good player, really good. I want to look up some of Ryan Ludwig's numbers because back in the day, man, it felt like, he had a handful of seasons, looked like from 07 to 2010 with the Cardinals, and was a solid outfielder. Played some corner outfield. I think he probably played a little left and a little right. I remember him more in right field, just anecdotally. But he had an 08 season with St. Louis with a 966 OPS. He was an all-star that year, 37 bombs and 113 ribbies from Ryan Ludwig. I mean, he had just a really nice swing and a good game to him. Was able to hit for some power, hit for some batting average. But anyway, he's a special assistant, advisor, basically, in the organization. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Somebody out there, a reporter, probably would be able to tell you right away what exactly he's been doing. But from what I understand, if you look on the Cardinals website, he's an advisor and a coach within the organization, but not with a specific role. So he's kind of able to maybe do a few different things. But it was evidently a conversation with Victor Scott II. I had talked about it previously on B-Schaeff Daily. I don't know that he's been working with him every day, but it was a conversation that at one point took place where Ryan Ludwig basically was kind of helpful to Victor Scott in terms of his swing and being able to kind of reorganize himself. And his load looks different. He's engaged with his legs a lot better, and been described as a more athletic swing from Victor Scott II. And so the thought being, I mean, if he can help Victor, is he able to impart some words of wisdom to Jordan Walker? Although, like, go look at Jordan Walker's numbers lately. He's been hitting the ball hard, and he's been hitting for power. He's been getting some lift on some of these swings that he's had as well. So I think Walker, I've been telling people, could be right around the corner. Allison is correct. I don't think that she's necessarily the only one. John got the trade as well. Jake Westbrook was the deal. It was a 3-team trade indeed with the Padres and Indians. Does anybody? Yeah, Corey Kluber was in the deal. Was a prospect with the Padres, but ended up with the Indians in that deal. At the time, the Cleveland Indians. Now, of course, the Guardians. So, yep, that was the trade. And the hint was going to be who got the win in arguably like the most famous Cardinals World Series game, Game 6 in 2011. Jake Westbrook, after all the craziness, I believe, right, came in and pitched a scoreless, whatever that would have been, 11th inning, 10th inning. I can't even remember how many innings that game went. But he was officially credited with the win in that one because right before the walk-off, he was the guy to pitch, and he was a starter that year. Yeah, top of the 11th was a scoreless frame after the craziness of the 10th inning. So that was going to be my hint, but you guys didn't need one. 2007, Nodlin to about 2010. And yeah, I kind of forget, like, I'm 30 years old now, but I was a kid when 2007 and 2010 and all that stuff was going on. So 24-year-old may not remember all that, which is totally fine. Thank you, Nodlin, for being here, man. And make sure you subscribe to the channel for keeping up with all our Cardinals stuff if you're relatively new. But appreciate the comments there. BC says that Eric Fetty has struggled. I don't agree with that. He had a tough outing at Wrigley that really was boiling down to one bad inning where he gave up a multi-run homer, and then I think he gave up another one after that, a 5-run inning, but still went through 5 innings that day. And then yesterday, I guess it's almost midnight, but still I can say yesterday, he battled. Exactly as Korn said, he battled last night. And to my eyes, like, I saw some really good things out of Eric Fetty. 5 innings, 1 run. By the way, that'll play in a game 2 of a wild card series if the Cardinals can get there. Like, they can win with that formula. Sonny goes 7 and gives up 2 like he did the other day. And then game 2, Eric Fetty, 5 innings, 1. You're going to need the bullpen to show up, but that can get the job done. We actually have a comment from Facebook here. John comments, and look, I don't know if anybody's watching this on Facebook. I've never streamed to Facebook, but if it goes over well, I'll start streaming to my Facebook account. I'll stream to my Twitter as well, and we'll just kind of we'll make it happen. YouTube is really still where I want people to subscribe, but if you're following me on those other avenues, totally cool. But John says, I think it's more the hitters a lot because some hitters have improved this season. I remember the Ludwig trade. Cardinals got Westbrook in it. Ludwig went to the Padres. Kluber to the Indians, now the Guardians. The Cardinals also received Nick Greenwood from the Padres, along with Jake Westbrook. Yeah. And so, I want to see what this lineup looks like at the end of the year, and then we can start to talk about it. Because the difficult part about this is when you're looking at maybe more than half of the lineup and saying, guy underperformed, like, these are guys that are core members of the present and future. Like, if Lars Nootbaar doesn't hit, what's the answer to that? Because the Cardinals have staked a lot on Lars Nootbaar, right? Of all the outfielders that have come through here, there's not ever been any doubt in that front office about Lars Nootbaar being part of the present and the future, right? They've done everything short of giving him the early contract extension, which right now, he's not a great candidate for at this moment. But, like, Lars Nootbaar is very much a part of what the Cardinals want to be. And if that guy's, having some injuries and underperforming, obviously you have an oblique in the middle of a season, and it can be maybe a tough one to come back from and be productive again. But they need more from Newt right now. And they certainly need more from Gorman. We know he's got a hot, cold game to him, but that's something that they need him. I mean, he was supposed to be a big part of this offense. So you can say, hey, Burleson has emerged. Should that be a credit to the hitting coaching staff rather than, just looking at the guys that have underperformed? I would say that Mason Wynn has performed above what most people expected from him, right? So you have to look at the body of work and the totality of it. But if you're talking about the offseason, If we get there and the Cardinals rank, 20th or 21st in runs scored, kind of about where they are right now, and you say, hey, how do you improve the offense for next year? What do you fix? What do you change? And that's the concern, because I don't see the Cardinals making the bold move that trades a Gorman. I'm not saying they need to, but maybe they do, right? Like, I'm not sure what that move is to say we need to shake it up and just get a different feel to it. Do the Cardinals make those sorts of moves? Not really. It's been a while since we've seen that. And I think they would be so hesitant because you're like, well, we know what Gorman could become. We know what Newpark could become. But the Cardinals have kind of fallen into that trap before, right? Dylan Carlson's a Ray now as a result of that trap, where if the Cardinals had said, hey, we like Dylan Carlson, but this other thing that we can get potentially, and this is not me saying they could have traded him for Soto. That's not realistic. You would have traded Walker too. You would have traded Mason Wint. Like, you were trading everybody if you were going to get Juan Soto. It was not just Dylan Carlson. Carlson was not something they were willing to trade along with all those other guys. It was a comprehensive reason that it didn't happen. But all that being said, you're looking at this lineup now and going, the guys that they had kind of guaranteed were supposed to be part of this thing, well, they're kind of underperforming too. It's not just Goldie who you can say, well, he's a free agent, so you can let him walk. It's the guys that were supposed to be emerging, and now they're still kind of stuck in the middle a little bit. Good players, but if you let good get in the way of great, which is a very overly simplistic way of phrasing it, because it's not like the Cardinals can just say, no, we want to trade these couple of good guys and get the one that we know is great. Because anybody that you're going to trade for could have the same thing happen to them. And the guy you trade away could end up fulfilling his destiny of being a great perennial all-star. And so it's just a matter of kind of finding that mix, and the Cardinals it has evaded them recently on some of the guys that they're not even thinking about. Brendan Donovan and Newpark, like, these are guys that they just know are going to be studs for them. And right now they're playing fine, but they don't have OPSs above 800 outside of Wilson Contreras. He's at 836. Not anybody else on the team has one. Burley is next best at 766. Wynn at 751. Those are your three highest OPSs, and they're batting 1, 2, and 3 in your order. So the lineup wise, like, they're doing everything they've got. They just need the rest of the guys to start chugging and kind of keep chugging. Nodland says that Kareem might have brainwashed me, but I'm more okay with trading Gorman now that we have Weatherholt on the way. I don't really connect the two, because I feel like Weatherholt is going to be still a couple few years away, and you're not necessarily planning your roster around a guy that's currently in low A. However, I think Weatherholt's an exciting prospect and was a real steal for the Cardinals to be able to get when they got him, and that's in that portion of the draft. When does Lance Lynn come back? I'll be honest with you, Allison, I was not at the game tonight. I did hear the cat give a little bit of an update on Lynn, but I did not actually hear the contents of that one. So I don't 100% know, but I think he's throwing again is what they were saying. So look, I think they knew that this was going to be a few weeks for Lance Lynn and kind of give him a rest at a good point in the season. The knee had certainly been bothering him. I don't see anybody talking about it on Twitter though. So I honestly, unfortunately, don't have a great update for you on that, but I always try to be honest about when I do or when I don't. Corn says that Kyle Leahy catches too many strays. He's been better than anybody could have expected, and I agree with that. But Nick wants to know if Leahy over Armstrong was due to the Rays having familiarity with Armstrong, or do I believe that Ollie trusts Leahy more in general? Well, it would make sense that Ollie would trust Leahy more in general because he's more familiar with Leahy, right? Like, he hasn't seen Armstrong very much, so it's kind of hard to really know whether or not he is trustworthy yet for those roles. So I wasn't really surprised to see that order of operations tonight. No. John from Facebook says, glad Burleson has emerged this season. I still remember when tons of fans wanted him gone last year. Glad lots of those fans weren't in charge. It's a great point from John, because Burley now, I think everybody universally accepts that he's a guy that should be batting in the lineup every day, should be in the top third of the order, and is one of the better hitters on this team. Whereas last year it was basically like, I don't know about Alec Burleson. And look, I was waiting to kind of see the BABIP numbers turn around and him become the type of hitter that the Cardinals thought he could be. But the Cardinals, they knew what they were talking about with Alec Burleson, and now we're all seeing it. So just something to keep in mind when you're ready to give up on somebody. Sometimes the organization has reasons for making different decisions with the data that they have. John said, what it do, B-Schaeff? Appreciate you, John, for being in here today. Let's see. Ace said the next 3 weeks are going to be rough. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look real quick at the schedule that the Cardinals have coming up, because it's tough, man. They had that period where it was like, oh, it's the easiest stretch of schedule. Not anymore. And we knew this the whole way through. We knew this was going to get this way. 2 at the Royals, and then a very bizarre off day on Sunday. I don't know what we're going to do on Sunday when there's no Cardinals game. But they start at KC tomorrow, and they have them Saturday night as well. And the Royals are in a wild card spot, so that's no slouch. And they've already beat the Cardinals twice on the year. They're wrapping up the 4-game season series. Cardinals should do their best to not get swept in that. At the Reds next week, that's kind of the easiest series you have for the rest of the month, because then it goes Dodgers, Brewers, which that's huge. I mean, you relish the chance to play Milwaukee because you're not catching them without probably sweeping them. At Twins, another playoff contender, 4 home against the Padres. Mike Shildt coming back to town. That'll be fun. But obviously they're in a wild card. And then you flip to September, at the end of August and early September, at Yankees, at Brewers. I mean, that's all playoffs all the time before it gets a little bit lighter. Mariners, Reds, Blue Jays, Pirates, before you face a really good Guardians team. And then it's a little easier at the end, at Rockies, at Giants. But a West Coast swing to end the season is maybe not the easiest thing in the world. So, yeah, I just went through the whole schedule for you, Corn. I know you said the 3 weeks, or was that Ace that was talking about the schedule? 3 weeks is tough. I think you could look the rest of the way, and it's going to be tough. They're going to have to win series and try to find the sweeps where they can. That's what makes tonight a little bit difficult, because this was one you could have swept, and how often are you going to be in that spot? Corn says Mason is awesome. The double play started by Nato was incredible. It really was. That's just the kind of thing that you're not going to see very much at all in major leagues. And those two guys are maybe two of the left side infield duo that could actually pull that off. So it's pretty good. Were Weatherholt and Victor Scott teammates at all at West Virginia? I'm going to assume no, but I appreciate the question because, Victor Scott is still pretty young, so you might think that was possible, but I'm going to say no, because Weatherholt was only there for 3 years, right? But maybe. Now, hold on a second. West Virginia, and I'm kind of shame on me for not knowing this sooner. Yeah, Victor's kind of risen through the system pretty quick. That's actually a great question, and I think the answer is going to end up being yes. I think Weatherholt's freshman year would have been Victor's last year there, because he was there in 2022. I'll be damned. Yes, they were teammates at West Virginia. So apologies that I didn't know that. And I mean, Victor played 55 games that year in 2022, and JJ played 54 games. So it's not like he was a freshman that didn't play. Yeah, they were on the same team. Very interesting. And Bill was on top of it as well, as I was kind of discovering it through Baseball Reference. They were teammates. Good call on that, Corn. And I am surprised that I hadn't really heard anybody talk about that. Usually people smarter than me are on top of that. Maybe they were and I just missed it. I miss a lot these days. Carl said, I don't think they can improve the offense with the stated budget and the current salary obligations. They can't eat salary to get rid of aging talent and get anything notable of return. That's fair. The way they improve the offense, though, like, it's going to sound annoying, because how many years of internal options do you need before you're like, maybe those internal options aren't as good? But internal options, honestly, could be just getting a better version of Newpark, getting a better version of Donovan, a better version of Gorman. I mean, I think those things are not outside the realm of possibility. But are they going to be able to count on it for another year? Are they going to be able to have year 3 of, hey, you were a bottom 10, bottom 12 team in OPS and run scored? Can you legitimately do that? Or do you need to try to pick the trades that need to happen of maybe they're not bad players, but we just need a new mix? Like, do they take that attitude? I don't know. It's definitely fair to ask. Casey says, came in late. Oh, dang it, Casey. I'm going to find your comment. I apologize for missing it. YouTube jumped on me. I think I can sort it by member comments. That's probably what I should do, if I can. I'll find it if I can, Casey. I apologize. Midwest wants to trade Arenado for Bobby Miller. I just don't think that you got to think about the contract of that too. Like, Arenado's contract is almost a deterrent for getting a big prospect back for him, is kind of the issue there. Allison, I do not have insight on the Budweiser Newpark collab. I think they're teasing it vaguely on purpose, but he could be a guest bartender. There could be a new drink they're introducing with like Newt Bar branding. Anything could happen, but it's kind of cool. It is kind of cool. I am not Casey. Dang it. I was right there. There it is. Came in late, but when was the last time the Birds swept someone? Yeah, it's been a minute since I've gotten to send that tweet. Surely they've done it since the Baltimore series, right? I remember they swept the Orioles this year, and there was one other one, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm trying to no, they didn't sweep the Braves. No sweeps in July, it doesn't appear. There's the Giants series was a sweep, right? That's the one. The Rickwood series, it was a little disjointed as a sweep because they had a day off in between, but that was technically a sweep. And I believe, that was mid to late June. That was the last time, if I'm not mistaken, the last time it happened. So there you go. All right, let's see if there's anything else that I really, really need to get to. 45 minutes might be about it for me tonight. It is almost midnight after all, but if there's anything pressing, let me know. Corn said, "Thank you for being my Google." No, like for real, I'm surprised that I hadn't seen anything about that. I'll ask some people later if I was just the dumb one or if everybody was kind of overlooking that in terms of, media. Because I'm sure there have been writers that have talked about it. I just have not been at every game to know what all is being discussed. I think I got to most of the comments too, guys. Look, they're gonna have to play at a really good pace to end the season if they're gonna get in. Baseball should be in the Olympics. It is going to be in 2028. That's the good news. It is coming back. That's official. 2028. It'll be back for, I think, full time. I don't think it's just a one-off like it was for 2020. But next year, if they can only get one player, pitcher or hitter, what would I do? I guess I would say probably a pitcher, simply because I don't know, unless they're trading away a hitter to get a hitter, they don't really have a spot. That is kind of the issue that I see. Call me crazy, but those guys that are filling all these spots are solid. They got to find somebody that you got to trade a solid with a prospect or two for a stud. Or you need that internal option to become the stud. And the Cardinals and John Mozeliak and those guys are who have to make the bets on who's going to be who. So that's part of it there. Say what you want about Newt, but my man is getting the bag with the endorsements. Yeah, no, he definitely is. And look, he'll get the bag with the player contract too at some point. But the numbers have got to come up, and you want to see that longevity on the field. You want to see that consistency from him health-wise too, which is one of those things that can be hard to quantify, but I do think is needed. But yeah, look, man, when we're talking about this Cardinals team, 7 games out of the division, they're only 2.5 out of the wild card. So that is within range for sure. And it's just not going to be an easy path. They've had to win when they win. It's by very close margins. It's by not making mistakes. It's by playing clean. The offense as a whole is going to be the reason this team doesn't get there if it doesn't happen. I'm not looking at the rotation. I'm not blaming when the rotation has an off start. They have been everything that John Mozeliak and company could have hoped for it to have been because of the way that this team was built, though. You need the offense to carry you. It's just the way the Cardinals were built. It's the way it was designed to work. When you go out and add guys that you say are going to be innings eaters, that's not with the thought that you're adding a Cy Young candidate. Now, maybe Sonny was supposed to be that, and I think he's going to fall a little bit short of that, but is still going to end up having a pretty good number one type of season for the Cardinals in their rotation. But you're adding Lance Lynn, you're adding Kyle Gibson to be solid, to improve upon the train wreck the rotation was last year. And that has happened. They've done that. And then they've added Eric Fetty because you had some injuries and you had some things you had to work through. Was smart to add him. They're 20th in OPS at 695. Excuse me. Goodness. I didn't know how to pause that. They're 20th in OPS at 695 in baseball this year. I know they started really rough and then they've gotten better since then. But the numbers are the numbers. We're not going to play like but since Mother's Day or whatever. No, the numbers are going to be the numbers. Over 162, they won't lie to you. And the Cardinals rank 22nd in runs scored. And the Braves are 2 runs behind them, but they've played 2 fewer games. So, I mean, really, the Cardinals are probably on a per-game basis closer to 24th in runs scored this season across Major League Baseball. I said all spring they need a top 10 offense if it's going to happen this year. And maybe top 10 would not even be enough. That was sort of my thought process. So that's what it boils down to for me is the Cardinal offense is going to have to get better. It's not hard to see where it would come from, where it would need to come from. It is consistently going to be the names that it's been all year. Can Goldie find another gear? I don't know. Arenado seems like the answer to that might be yes. He's starting to do that. But Ken Gorman, can you get Jordan Walker back and get the gear from him that you were supposed to have? Can, Burleson be as consistent as he's been? Can he maintain? There are some guys who you ask, can they maintain what they've done? Can Mason Wynn maintain? Can Burley maintain? Even Contreras, he's slumping right now, but can he maintain the 836 mark that he is for OPS on the year? Nootbaar, can they get the version of Nootbaar that's on base 340, 350 and has an OPS near 800? That's what they're looking for. So we'll have to see. BC mentions 13th in average. Yeah, but average is not the end all be all. In fact, it's less important than on base. It's less important than slug. If I could pick one of the three, I'm not picking average. That's third of the rankings there of the most important. So that's just kind of my thoughts there. Nodlin wants to know if I have a video talking about the Goldie news. There isn't any Goldie news. But if you want to be more specific, you might be talking about the notion that it was reported that the Cardinals and Goldie will talk after the season. If that's what you're mentioning, Nodlin, let me know, and I can try to address that. If you can comment back real quick before we get out of here. There's really no news on Goldie other than what, and I think it was Derek Gould in his chat said, which look, interest in signing him again. I think that is the polite way to frame it right now. It's the decorum of like a reporter is not going to say, and look, I'm not discounting. I'm sure Derek's sources are, spot on with that. There's going to be a conversation because there will be, but like, what's the tenor of that conversation? Is it one that is likely to result in a reunion? I feel like the answer is going to be no, unless there is momentum on Goldie's performance down the stretch. I've talked last night a little bit, Nodlin, about why it's difficult to give him that incentive-laden 2019 Adam Wainwright contract, because he's going to play every day. Wainwright would play every fifth day, and then it obviously worked out for Waino for 19, 20, 21, 22. It wasn't until he struggled in 2023 that was a rough year for the contract. But the incentive contract for an everyday player, it would be kind of like if they gave one to Matt Carpenter the year that everybody was glad to see him go. He needed to almost go somewhere else, see if he could stick it and hack it, and then he did, and then come back with the understanding that it's going to be in a reduced role. It's kind of hard to sign Goldie to an incentive-laden contract and say, you're going to be kind of a platoon guy. You're not going to be the MVP middle of the order bat that you had been for us. That's just kind of awkward. Like, you can do it, I guess, but that, like, everybody's got a role in that clubhouse, and it's going to just be a little bit different if the Cardinals say, hey, we want you back, but you can't have your same job back. We got to demote you to now you're a part-time player. And I think Goldie, where he's at this year, probably better served to be a part-time player. Probably should be platooning right now. He's not produced to the level of statistically a guy that should be batting where he's mostly batted. Now, he was down in the 6th hole tonight. I credit Ollie for doing that. I think that's about where he should be, 6th or 7th. And Arenado's swinging it better right now, and I think that's been kind of apparent for a number of weeks. And I was wondering why it is always the case that Goldie is ahead of Arenado in the order. They seem to have flipped that within the last few weeks. But as far as bringing him back, it's just hard because of the role. I don't think you can bring him back and say, hey, you're the everyday first baseman. That's what would be kind of tricky. Nodlin, as far as the MLBPA, yes, they cannot offer him a contract. It would simply be he would become a free agent for fake for like 5 minutes. That's what they did with Waino in 2019 before bringing him back. So yeah, 1 year, $3-4 million and incentives. The Cardinals might be very valuable to have him around in that role. But the question is, does it hold them back from being able to like move into the next iteration of what they want to do with their roster? And that's a touchy thing. So like, it's not a surprise to me that it's reported that there's going to be a conversation, because there would be. Like, how callous of an organization would they have to be to not have a conversation about, can we make it work to bring him back? Because he's been a very important player to this organization for several years at this point. So yeah, there's going to be a conversation. Will that conversation end in him returning? I'm skeptical of that, but there's a lot of things that'll happen between now and then to maybe inform that decision a little bit more. So we shall see. Kevin, I appreciate the super chat, my friend. Very nice of you. Yeah, not a ton of people here tonight, but man, we had some fun ones and some good people and some pretty good conversation, I feel. The last request I'll make, I'll ask one more time. Fantasy football. If you don't care about it, that's okay. In the description below on YouTube, you can subscribe to my fantasy football channel, as I'm trying in the month of August to add a couple of hundred subscribers over there to get it to the partner program status like I have on this channel. So if you could do me that favor, that would be great. Like the stream before you head out of here, though, guys. I appreciate you all for tonight. We're going to wrap it up there. Cardinals against the Royals starting tomorrow night, Friday night at Kauffman Stadium. We will have post-game reaction on B-Schaeff Daily, whether it's a live stream again on Friday night. Maybe I'll throw it on Twitter and really have some fun. At a minimum, though, you'll get B-Schaeff Daily like always. Thank you guys so much for the support, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily and B-Schaeff Daily Live. Peace.